your boy Jay Mass here. Today we are in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. We got beautiful blue skies, the Atlantic Ocean right behind me, a nice breeze, and we are going to be checking out some lighthouses, old forts, and even a foundation of an old mansion up in this area. Yo, what's up?
Who are you?
I'm Jay Mass. Who are you?
I'm Jay Mass.
You're Jay Mass.
I'm Jay Mass. Who are you? I'm Jay Mass.
I'm Jay Mass.
No, I'm Jay Mass. Get out of here. Get out of here. I'm Jay Mass. Who are you? Sorry about that, guys. I'm Jay Mass. I don't know who that guy was. Just some random guy came in front of the camera. Get back here, dude. Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jay Mass, and I'm back again with another dope New England adventure. So right now I'm in the beautiful town of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, which is located right nearby the city of Portland, Maine, the largest city in the state of Maine. And we're going to be checking out some really cool stuff today. We're going to be checking out a historic site known as Fort Williams Park, located right along the ocean, as you can see behind me. So all the way back in 1885, the Endicott Board was passed, and the purpose of the Endicott Board was to strengthen the U.S. coastline with better harbor defenses, more fortified coastal defenses. And one of those defenses was Fort Williams, built in 1898, just during the outbreak of the Spanish-American War, and completed in 1906. And Fort Williams is comprised of many batteries that are today scattered throughout Fort Williams Park, and most of them are abandoned with the remnants left behind for us to explore. So we're going to be checking out the remnants of Fort Williams here in Fort Williams Park in Cape Elizabeth. But there are many other things to check out, as you can actually see behind me. This is the very famous and iconic Portland Head Light. It was actually commissioned by George Washington, the first president of the United States, in 1787, and it was finished in 1791, and it stands at 80 feet tall, one of the most photographed lighthouses in the world. But of course, there are many other historic things to see here in Fort Williams Park, including the Goddard Mansion, a now abandoned mansion built in the 1850s. Of course, today, the remnants of the stone walls still stand, but numerous batteries of Fort Williams also stand. You can go inside them, climb around them. And just in general, Fort Williams Park in Cape Elizabeth is a gorgeous place, as you can see by all of these cliffs and rocks right on the ocean. It's a really cool spot. And also, as you guys saw at the beginning of the video, I'm actually joined by a good friend of mine. His name is Jesse, as you can see right here.
How's it going, folks?
You know, I've known Jesse for a long time. He's one of my longest friends, known him for years, and I've actually gone exploring with him many times in the past, a lot of urbex adventures together. And today he's actually going to be joining us here in Fort Williams Park and, you know, helping check it out, exploring the site. It's going to be a lot of fun. Got anything to say, Jesse, about Cape Elizabeth so far?
It's a beautiful day today.
It is. Gorgeous day today. But we're going to get right into it. Cape Elizabeth, Maine, Fort Williams Park. As always, guys, my name is Jay Mass. If you love urban exploration, checking out abandoned sites, traveling New England, that's my specialty. I do that all the time on this channel, so feel free to subscribe, or you can follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But we're going to get right into it. Fort Williams Park here in Cape Elizabeth, Maine. There's a lot to see, from abandoned forts to a lighthouse to remnants of a mansion. It's going to be a dope one. Let's check it out. So this right here is Battery Blair, one of numerous forts here in Fort Williams Park. As I mentioned, Fort Williams Park is comprised of several batteries, and Battery Blair is one of them. Now, the interesting thing is that they actually have some informational plaques right here. So I'll kind of scan through really briefly. If you guys are interested in reading about the history of Battery Blair and Fort Williams, I'll do a brief scan through. You can pause at any moment if you're interested. But as I mentioned, Battery Blair, along with many of the other batteries here in Fort Williams, were built between 1898 and 1906. A period of American history known as the Endicott Period, where many harbor defenses were built along the USS East Coast. Now, the Portland Harbor actually has numerous forts and batteries. Fort Williams is just one of many. I actually filmed another one on this channel, Battery Steel, on Peaks Island, which is right outside of Portland Harbor. But this right here is Battery Blair. Now, this is actually one of the smaller batteries on Fort Williams Park. We're going to be definitely seeing some bigger ones, though, and there are actually some where you can go inside the tunnels. What are you thinking of Battery Blair so far? Pretty cool?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You can just feel the history here.
I was thinking that too. Whenever you go to sites like this, it's like you have to understand you're walking through a place that was once an active military base. There were military personnel coming through here. I mean, this thing was active during both World Wars, World War I and World War II. It was stationed with numerous artillery searching for German U-boats and, you know, Navy ships and stuff. So it's kind of crazy to think about that. While today it's just abandoned remnants. At one point, this was a bustling and active battery. Pretty cool, but we're gonna go check out some more. But that was Battery Blair. Okay guys, we have another abandoned battery right here. Just like Battery Blair, not too much to this one, although it's still pretty cool. Another piece of history. But this is Battery Hobart. You can see Jesse standing on Battery Hobart right now. So I do just want to show you this plaque right here. There's a little informational plaque about Battery Hobart. As you can see, built in 1898, named for Lieutenant Henry A. Hobart. He was actually killed during the War of 1812. Now, I do kind of want to mention, as I've said in many abandoned fort videos I've filmed on the channel, I'm not very big in military history, so unfortunately I don't know the exact artillery that was used on these forts. As always, I'll include text below explaining which artillery was used here, but I do believe this is one of the battery turrets, or the mounts, where they had guns. You can kind of see remnants of it right there, pretty cool. Again, not too much though, just pretty weathered and chipped concrete. Mostly just the base of Battery Hobart. Pretty dope. But of course, you also got views of the ocean right over here. I do just want to highlight, it's a gorgeous place. Absolutely stunning here. What do you think? Are you team Battery Hobart or team Battery Blair so far?
It's a good question. I'm still team Edward though.
I feel you, dude. I don't know, I'm team Jacob. That's my name, so.
Team Jacob.
So this is pretty cool. Jesse and I were walking over and we came across this plaque talking about a mining casemate. Now, basically, during the Spanish-American War and both World Wars I and II, this area right here was actually used to lay mines throughout the Casco Bay right here. You can see this is Ship's Cove, little cove right here near the Atlantic Ocean. And they would actually lay mines in the water here. And yeah, what do you think about that, Jesse?
Yeah, it's actually really, really cool. So what we have right here actually is a stairway that's probably connected from Battery Hobart and other areas. Where they would go down here and they would have little boats, like almost like rafts, where they would load on the mines, and then they would take them and then ship them out and leave them in the causeway, basically the main entrance into this like main harbor area, and they would lay out the mines there to protect as a first line of defense before any vessels reached the actual batteries themselves. It was kind of like mines first, and they got through, then they would gun them down.
Yeah, so it is kind of cool that at one point, you know, during wartime, they would have mines here in the water. Basically, imagine during World War II, if there were German U-boats in the waters of the Casco Bay, they would have mines as a first layer of protection, of defense, in case any boats or enemy ships came nearby. Pretty cool, though. And I did just want to give you guys a better, more full view of Ship Cove right here. Jesse and I were just right up there showing you the mining casemate where they laid mines in the cove right here, and you can actually see some parts of it right over there, the mining casemate. Those are some remnants. But I did just want to give you this gorgeous view, Ship Cove, leading out into the Casco Bay. Pretty gorgeous. Very shortly, we're going to be heading over to Battery Keys right over there. Battery Keys is actually the largest of the abandoned batteries, and there are actually some tunnels we can go inside. So yeah, we're going to go check that out and see what's going on. But just did want to show you this gorgeous little area right here. So what you're seeing right in front of you right now are the ruins and remnants of the Goddard Mansion. This property was purchased by Colonel John Goddard in 1853 and constructed by prominent Maine architect Charles A. Alexander by 1858 when it was completed. And the Goddard family actually lived here for about 30 years. During that time, John Goddard actually served during the Civil War. But by 1898, the U.S. Army actually purchased the mansion. And by 1900, it had been officially integrated into Fort Williams, where it actually became an officer's quarters. And as you can see right now, all that's really left behind is the facade of the stone walls. What's really cool, it might be hard to tell, but this was actually modeled after Italiante architecture. I don't know, what do you think, Jesse? Pretty dope, huh?
I think it's really cool. A little bit of extra history behind the Goddard Mansion. After Mr. Goddard stopped utilizing the house and it was abandoned, it was picked up by the U.S. military when they built Fort Williams, and they actually still use the mansion to house enlisted service members' families within the mansion while they were stationed here at Fort Williams.
Yeah, it is kind of cool that, you know, between 1898 and 1900, when Fort Williams was under construction, they actually purchased this mansion, which actually became an integral part of the park. And we're going to take a look inside really quick, see what's going on. I do apologize if it's kind of hard to see because of this gate right here. But you can see there's some remnants of the stone architecture back there. I think that's actually a brick chimney right over there, but pretty dope. You want to go to the back, see what's going on?
Yeah, sure.
As you can see, there's a little pathway right here. And when you go to the back of the mansion, there are some stellar views of the back end. It's wicked dope. So this right here is the back end of Goddard Mansion, built throughout the 1850s. And yeah, pretty cool back here. You can actually get another view from a different angle. Let's see if we can peer inside really briefly. You know, the thing I do like about Goddard Mansion, I gotta say, is the type of stone architecture that was used. You can actually see that they have mortar in between all these different variations, sizes, and shapes of stone, which is kind of cool. You don't see that very often in stone architecture, especially nowadays.
Yeah. So something else to keep in mind too, all this stone was locally founded in this area. So they actually pulled it from the beaches, which is the reason why you can see it in different shapes, sizes, and colors. And so it's not all distinctly from just one different specific mine or quarry. They built it from the land itself.
Yeah, it is kind of cool that this is all locally sourced, you know, Maine materials. Different kinds of stone and rock. Yeah, let's head down here. I also gotta say too, and you guys know this from a lot of abandoned places I visited, is there's like little to no graffiti. Not just at Goddard Mansion, but like Fort Williams in general. I've seen almost no graffiti at any of these spots, which is really impressive. I mean, obviously you got a little bit like this, but nothing like what you guys are used to seeing. The graffiti is very few and far between at this place, which I do like. It gives it a very refreshing, preserved feel. But pretty awesome though. It's really cool remnants of a once thriving and opulent mansion. I don't know, is this your dream home, Jesse? Would you live here?
Yeah, I mean, just give me one afternoon, I can get this place up and running.
You know, he's built different.
Yeah, that's true.
But it is cool. Part of why John Goddard actually purchased this property and built this mansion were for the sweeping views of the Casco Bay. And you also got this gorgeous forest right here. Actually, if you follow this trail, it leads to our next spot, Battery Keys, right along the coast. And we're gonna check that out in a second, but I did just want to take the time to enjoy the beautiful Italiante architecture of Goddard Mansion. So this right here is Battery Keys, which is the largest of the many batteries here in Fort Williams Park. I do have to mention it's a little crowded here, but we're gonna try to go through. There's actually a network of many tunnels underneath that you can go through. It's pretty cool, some underground buildings and stuff. Though I do just want to show you this informational plaque before we head inside. It actually gives a little bit of information about Battery Keys. As you can see, completed in 1905, named for Erasmus D. Keyes, a resident of Maine who graduated from the U.S. Military Academy. This is pretty cool. And yeah, this is Battery Keys right here. Pretty decently sized structure. You know, I do have to say, Fort Williams, most of the batteries here aren't that big compared to most forts that I'm used to seeing, but still pretty decent sized structure. So yeah, I think we're gonna go and see what the inside has to offer. Maybe we can start with this one right over here. Got some 2 rooms we can look inside. You know, I did mention this at the Goddard Mansion, but it's kind of surprising that there's not that much graffiti. You know, me and Jesse were actually walking around here, and I was mentioning that the only graffiti you really see around here is just little writing here on the top, kind of like this. But it's pretty cool. I don't know, maybe this was like the barracks for soldiers or something.
Maybe.
Not actually sure.
Storage.
That's true. Oh yeah, you know, this could have been a storage for ammunition, but pretty cool. And of the 2 rooms, this is the second one right here. Again, like the one we were just in, not too much going on. It's pretty empty, pretty barren. You do have a minor amount of tagging on the roof, but again, really not much graffiti. This is actually a pretty well intact, you know, fort right here, but pretty cool. This was probably another ammunition storage room. Not entirely sure. Now this right here is pretty cool. This is actually a little tunnel that wraps around the interior of the fort. It actually goes around the perimeter. I think Jesse and I are actually gonna head in and see what's going on. It's super narrow, super tight. But look at this. You can actually see it's like the size of Jesse's torso. It is super skinny, super narrow in here, very narrow. And unfortunately, I do have to say, I completely forgot to bring my flashlight, so we're relying on Jesse's flashlight, which hopefully is not an issue. But you know what? This kind of reminds me of like walking through a super skinny and narrow labyrinth. It's like, it literally is like a labyrinth. It is so skinny in here. Oh, there's even like a pipe right here. What the hell? I hope you're not claustrophobic, Jesse.
No, I'm fine.
Jeez. You know, this kind of reminds me a lot of Fort Wetherill in Jamestown, Rhode Island. That fort had a lot of these really narrow pathways. I think I actually had someone tell me that those were used for wiring, you know, electrical input and wiring. Kind of cool. But yeah, that was that tunnel that kind of wraps around Battery Keys. Pretty dope. But if you are very claustrophobic, wouldn't recommend going in there. But I think in a second we're gonna head up top, see what's going on. So this right here is the upper level of Battery Keys, overlooking the ocean and lawn over here. But this is the upper level. You got two little rooms right here. One room right here. As you can see, there's a little slit looking out towards the Casco Bay. Similar to this one right here, another slit looking out to the Casco Bay. Now, I could be wrong, but I believe that these little platforms here, these octagonal platforms, were turrets where artillery was mounted, pointing towards the ocean in case of any enemy fleet coming towards the center. But pretty cool. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really cool. Another cool thing about Battery Keys is that this is the chief battery of all the batteries here at Fort Williams. This is actually where they overlooked the bay and chose where to lay the mines from the mining Casemate that we saw not too long ago. Along with that, this was also the first contact point for any vessels entering into the bay, of where if any vessels that entered did not specify who they were and like their affiliation and whatnot, this is the first point of contact of where they would fire upon the vessels.
Yeah, it is pretty cool to note that, you know, as I said, Battery Keys is definitely the largest of the batteries here in Fort Williams, and that is very much the case. This is the chief battery. And also, like Jesse said, you can see all the way out over there, the mining casemate. It's actually that structure right there, the mining casemate, where they would lay mines into the Casco Bay as a point of coastal defense. But pretty dope. And yeah, you want to keep checking out the top Battery Keys. There's still a bit more to see, and then I think we're going to make our way to the last few sites on Fort Williams Park. But you know, I'm really liking it. There's a lot of history here, a lot of cool stuff to see. Now, this is another part of Battery Keys I want to check out really quick. You got the exterior of this little guard post right here, which I believe it is. Now, you see this little slit right here? This is where they would have the barrel of a gun pointing out towards the Casco Bay, searching for enemy fleet. Pretty awesome to see that from the outside, and we're going to venture in a second. But, you know, this kind of leads into the point I wanted to get into, which is about Fort Williams's role during both World Wars. Now, although this was built in 1898 during the height of the Spanish-American War, it was prominently used during World War I and World War II. Now, basically, during both World Wars, it was stationed by many troops. During World War II, the regular army and the Maine National Guard was stationed here. And during World War I, it was also the Maine National Guard and the Coast Army Artillery. So there were numerous different troops and platoons and you know, forces stationed here at Fort Williams Park. And I do also have to mention that during both World Wars, Fort Williams was actually the chief fort of the Portland Harbor defense system. I mentioned earlier that the Portland Harbor had numerous forts that were stationed at many points. I mean, Battery Steel was one I mentioned earlier on Peaks Island. But Fort Williams was actually the chief of all the forts during both World Wars. Kind of interesting. But it was such a prominent fort during both World Wars in order to protect the city of Portland, which was a major shipping and industrial hub of this area. And again, you can see the gorgeous view of Ship Cove right here. I mean, look at that. You got people going to the beach, nice picnic area. It really is a scenic spot. Right nearby, a one-time, massively important and influential military fort. Pretty cool. So this is kind of cool, guys. Check out this abandoned structure right here. Got another one. Although this isn't a battery, this is actually something different. And as you can see from this plaque right here, this is the central powerhouse. This was basically the power plant for the entire Fort Williams system. basically gave power out to all of the buildings. And we're gonna go check it out, but it is pretty dope. Also got a brick shed right over there, but I think we're gonna venture in this little stone structure first, see what's going on. Pretty awesome though. You know, this kind of reminds me a lot of Goddard Mansion, you know, the style of architecture. Though there's definitely a lot more brick in this one. Oh yeah. Look at that. Yeah, pretty awesome. Again, not too much graffiti. I mean, only a little bit, but nothing horrible. Let's see what's going on up here. So you can almost imagine that at one point, you know, there were actually like huge machines in here supplying power to the whole Fort Williams system. Because Fort Williams isn't just what you're seeing today with batteries. I mean, there were also, you know, barracks, living quarters. I'm sure there were dining halls and, you know, all these other buildings that required power to function. And this was the source of it, the power plant.
That's right. So standing right here and right there were twin coal engines that they used the power to generate electricity for all the forts. Now all the batteries and whatnot had their own personal small power stations for their own power, but if anything happened to them or they needed more power, it would be connected from here. And that little brick building that you said, that you pointed out earlier,
yeah,
right here, it used to be where they housed the transformers to take the coal power, put it into electricity, and it convert it into the AC current to send it off all the way to the other ports.
Yeah, Jesse, you know, Jesse does bring up a good point that you have to understand like the time this was used, you know, the late 1800s, early 1900s, coal was still like the primary source of energy. So this place used coal-powered engines to function and supply power. Oh, this is cool. So there is actually some graffiti in this building though. This is pretty dope. Got a great white shark right there.
That actually is a great.
It's a great white shark. But yeah, pretty awesome though. This is kind of cool. This kind of reminds me of like a little bunker area right here.
Yeah, if I were to guess, it's probably where they house the coal.
That's a good point. Yeah, they probably had the coal here, some storage, I bet. Let's see what's going on out here. Yeah, and this is the exterior of the Powerhouse. As you can see, just like the Goddard Mansion, built out of cobblestone, which is kind of cool. Very different from the batteries we saw, which were completely solid concrete. And we're just gonna check out this little brick shed right here. Probably not too much going on, but still pretty awesome. And you think this is where they stored the transformers?
That is correct. So all the power that was made within the main building would get sent to here into large transformers. He converted it into alternating current, AC. So it would be able to get sent long distances down to all of any barracks, any cafes, and of course the batteries.
Correct.
That we saw.
And most of that power came from this building right here, the power plant. Really cool, pretty dope. And this is actually the last abandoned building on the Fort Williams Park property. I think we're gonna end off by checking out the iconic Portland headlight, and then that's about it. But I gotta say, Fort Williams Park was an absolutely gorgeous place. Lots to see, lots of history. This is kind of cool, by the way. Just wanted to highlight this really quick because I actually didn't know about this, but apparently there was a ship known as the USS Eagle, you can see right here. It was actually torpedoed and sunk by a German U-boat 9 miles off the coast of this location on April 23rd, 1945. So just imagine that, April 23rd, 1945, you got the Casco Bay right here, the Portland headlight, and just imagine that there's a U-boat completely sinking and torpedoing a vessel. It's kind of crazy to think about that. That happened just 9 miles off the coast of New England during an active war. I never knew about that, to be honest, but that's kind of crazy. But yeah, rest in peace to the crewmen of the USS Eagle. You can actually see their names are listed right over here. Never knew about that, but that is kind of sad to think about, especially considering how close it is to home. And this right here is one of the most iconic symbols of both Maine and New England, which of course is the Portland headlight here off the coast of Cape Elizabeth, Maine. Now I'm sure many of you guys have seen pictures and photographs of this. I mean, it's a super famous location. It was actually commissioned by George Washington, later the US president, in 1787, and it was constructed in 1791, standing at 80 feet tall. That's a pretty cool place. It was actually completely automated by 1989, but when it was first established, it actually used whale oil for lighting. And you have to understand, you know, at the time this was built in the 1700s up to the 1800s, this was really the only site that ships would see on their way through the Casco Bay, you know, especially during a really foggy night. This was their only source of guidance, long before navigation and radar and GPS and all that. The lighthouse was one of the most crucial components of sea navigation, and that's why lighthouses were so important back then. They were basically beacons for the Navy, for fishermen, for trade, super crucial components of the sea market. But really cool, again, one of the most gorgeous places in Maine, New England, and the US. It is a super iconic location. I believe it's actually one of the most photographed landmarks in the country. Pretty cool. And I just want to show you this absolutely gorgeous area. You got all the cliffs here, right off the coast of Cape Elizabeth, emptying out into the Casco Bay. Pretty awesome. Hey, thank you guys for joining me. I've been J-Mass, and this has been another dope New England adventure. So today we explored Fort Williams Park here in the beautiful seaside town of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, right outside of the city of Portland. As you can see, the gorgeous Portland headlight right behind me, probably my favorite lighthouse in New England and in the world, is an absolutely gorgeous lighthouse. But of course, the main event today were all of the abandoned forts we checked out: Battery Keys, Battery Hobart, Battery Blair, all part of the Fort Williams system, which was part of the Endicott Period, in which numerous coastal defenses were constructed all along the USS East Coast in 1898 to 1906. Really cool spot. Obviously, they were used during the Spanish-American War and both World Wars. It was actually decommissioned in 1962, and by 1964, the town of Cape Elizabeth took over, buying off the properties, and you know, it eventually became this public park, Fort Williams Park. But, you know, we saw a lot of cool stuff from the batteries. Of course, the Goddard Mansion, which was built between 1853 and 1858 by Charles A. Alexander, and of course Colonel John Goddard, who actually served in the Civil War. Lots of history here, a lot to see. I'm sure I didn't even cover most of it. There's a lot here. Fort Williams Park is a pretty dope spot. But anyways, guys, my name has been J-Mass, and of course I do want to shout out my homeboy Jesse Walsh, who actually joined us today. I do want to mention Jesse actually has his own YouTube channel. He's a composer who, you know, makes his own music and stuff. It's J.R. Walsh Music on YouTube. I'll link it right here, and I'll also link it in the description below. So if you guys love original music and composition, that's Jesse's forte. But yeah, thanks Jesse for joining me, checking out Fort Williams Park. Any final thoughts? What'd you think of it?
Yeah, it was a lovely place. You know, lots of history here, lots of cool abandoned places that we saw that were still in really great condition. You know, being well preserved by the town, along with the beautiful picturesque lighthouse that everybody knows about.
That is a good point, because, you know, most of the abandoned forts I've explored in this channel have been like super vandalized, lots of graffiti. I feel like the forts here are in really good condition, like for their age. Not much vandalism or anything. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed checking out Fort Williams Park with us. As always, my name is J-Mass. If you guys love urban exploration, checking out abandoned sites, history, and New England travel, feel free to subscribe to the channel or follow me on Instagram at JMassOfficial. That's at JMassOfficial. But I've been J-Mass. That's been Cape Elizabeth, Maine, Fort Williams Park, the Portland headlight, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you later.